telling people one at a time all about what's going on. I'm here in Tobago resting and about to go back.
You had mentioned at some point you were falsely arrested. Did you tell me that before the interview?
Could you say that again?
I think at one point you told me you were falsely arrested.
Yes, that's what I was saying. The police came to my door, and I was very, very ill. I was fairly ambulatory. My life consisted of getting to the bathroom and laying in the bed and watching TV. They knocked at my door and asked if they could come in. These are the same people who had just taken me to a mental hospital when I requested their help. So needless to say, I said, no, you may not come in. My care provider, supposedly, told them that I had made a threat against her life, which is absolutely, totally untrue. What's good about this equipment is that they know truth from lie, and they know that that stuff is not true at all. But they used the 9/11 to be able to do that. They came into my house, they knocked the door not off the hinges, they knocked the whole wall down, but the door, around the door. They beat me with that. They sprayed my head, they held my head under a pillow, spraying me with pepper spray, and saying I was resisting arrest. Then they drugged me out, they hosed me down to get the pepper spray off me in front of all my neighbors, and several, like 4 or 5 cop cars doing this. There are only 2 actual officers who did the beating, but there were about 4 or 5 there. And so then I went to the judge, and my attorney was part of it. And so I told the judge, I'm moved to do, I believe it was a Marsden motion, where I requested to have another attorney or be my own attorney. And the judge took everybody out of the courtroom and said, okay, what's the deal? And I told him, listen, my attorney tells me that I deserved what happened to me when I deserved nothing. And he obviously can't represent me if he's not even on the same page. The judge dismissed the case immediately. But I still had to take resisting arrest because that was a reality. So here they came in and did that for absolutely nothing, and I still had to have a resisting arrest judge.
Well, I have heard that the police do falsely arrest victims of gang stalking because they are often involved themselves. That's not all police officers, but many times the police are on the payroll of these stalkers. And it does happen.
The police who did this to me were stationed at the person who owned my house owned the police station as well. And he was having some difficulties with his ex-wife. And so, it's a possibility they come in and work me over for him. I have no idea. But all I know is that is what happens.
Okay. And, yes, go ahead. We cut off for a minute. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'm done.
Okay. How are you dealing with this now? How are you dealing with this harassment right now? What are you doing? Are you writing letters? Are you moving around? What are you doing?
Well, for one thing, like I said, I took the action to go to Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. I went, first I emailed everybody and wasn't getting anywhere, so I went directly to their offices, including press as well as government. And then I had some shirts made that show my brain images, that show the chips, and put words across there. I was illegally implanted by the U.S. government May 2004, and then I carried all my paperwork to show my records, and I just walked around showing people, this is my brain, this is what the government has done to me, and these are my papers that prove it. I didn't feel like I was getting very far. I went to some political rallies to try to get some help there. They recommended that I go to Venezuela since Chavez is supposedly not friends with Bush, and maybe I could get some help by exposing this situation internationally. So I went to Venezuela. I spent the 8 months there and pretty much left about the same place that I was in Washington, D.C. when I went there.
Why
I'm going back.
Oh, why do you think that so many cases are popping up around the world? Why do you think these stalkings are starting to occur everywhere?
Well, I have no idea about the timing. All I know is I continue to do the research via Googling this, that, and the other, as well as some of the things that are sent to me by other targets. And it seems that with Operation Paperclip, and this is all, when you have to separate fact and fiction or fact and theory. The things I told you earlier, I was trying to be very factual. These things are theoretical. With regard to, well, Operation Paperclip is a fact. We did take all the brains from Germany after the Nazi movement, and we took what they were doing. We also took the practices from Russia in the Cold War. So that seems to be how this has evolved. And at this point, it seems to me that most of the people who are in charge of this program are getting old and dying, and it's going into the hands of others. I have no idea why. That's just one guess.
Well, a lot of people think it's a New World Order issue.
Well, from what I understand, and I'm not sure that this is true, but I was told that Grandfather Bush funded the Nazi movement, Daddy Bush ushered in the New World Order, and Baby Bush is doing his best to destroy the United States and bring it under fascism, and not on his own initiative, I'm sure. I'm sure this is going to work for a while.
If you could tell victims how to handle this type of harassment, what would you tell them to do in order to deal with this versus being pushed to suicide or institutionalization?
Yeah, I actually have tried to take my own life on several occasions during the first parts of this, and miraculously didn't die. So without any treatment or anything, just had absolutely no response reaction. For me, the first thing I had to do was trust myself, and I did. I knew I wasn't nuts. I didn't know anything about this stuff, and now I do know about it, and I still trust myself. It's really difficult because you're very alone. I'm very alone. Even the people who tolerate my story, it's very difficult for them. So finding other people that you can feel safe with, that you can tell them what's going on, someone that can comfort you, other targets that can comfort you with regard to, yes, I know, I have voiced the skull, this is the particular torture they use. I have the benefit of having been former military, having been trained to handle torture. That's how I knew this was the Department of Defense doing this, or that's how I paired it with the Department of Defense because it was the exact same techniques that I had learned when I was in the military. So how does it help? I mean, what can be most helpful? For me, survival has been first and foremost. Whatever I can do to survive is where I'm at. I live trying to survive. I'm getting a little more functionality since going to Puerto Rico, but my life is torture constantly. They never stop.
No, they don't stop. And if you can't give in to them, because even if you give in to them, they still don't go away. You've got to be a very strong person and really, go out there and handle it. And it sounds like that's what they're doing. And I hope a lot of victims out there are doing this, because to succumb to this is either death or slavery or institutionalization. So victims have to stay tough out there.
Yeah, and somehow have to stay connected. The big thing that they had over me is that they had thoroughly isolated me. So had I not gone to Puerto Rico, had I not had the governor's office of Puerto Rico and the veterans advocate on my side saying, this guy's telling the truth, but I can't help him, then I don't know that anyone would ever believe me. And so I guess standing strong, apparently you have to have some inner strength. I have God.